Welcome back to PCW, where today we are reviewing Monday Night Raw. Raw this week felt like a strange transitional show, with only one match of real note happening and a whole lot of people from the undercard getting time on TV. Now this isn't a bad thing. In order to become draws and powerful in their own right, the star power of these individuals has to be nurtured over time. In order to make stars from mid-carders, for example, you need to have them on TV week in week out in compelling storylines. They're at least on TV week in week out. The main result here is one of the most dull second hours I've ever seen in an episode of Raw. I'm Tom Colicky for PCW and let's break it down for you. The show opened as usual this time of year with a Memorial Day weekend salute. I'm from the UK, so I could not care less about this. The Miz has not been eaten by zombies, or at least he has, and then so what, much like AJ Styles being buried alive. He and John Morrison made some truly awful jokes. Like, really genuinely terrible. And then Charlotte Flair came down. She was surprised by the arrival of Rhea Ripley, despite the fact there was a chair for Ripley right next to her. And somehow the end result here was that we replayed the exact angle from last week, but this time it was Charlotte against Nikki in a 2-minute match, which Nikki Cross won. There is something in the WWE called spoiler syndrome, when they have so many storylines that have gone way past their sell-by date, so they just throw more people into them. You've seen it most recently with Keith Lee, for example, in the middle of the Randy Orton-Drew McIntyre storyline from summer last year. They just keep throwing people into it. Kofi Kingston is that. Nikki Cross is that. At least she's getting quote-unquote wins. But surviving for 2 minutes is not a win. This is disrespectful to everyone involved. Randy Orton, with a new EC freestyle goatee, interrupted a conversation between Damian Priest and Matt Riddle, and that's all we've seen of Damian Priest. The WWE at the moment are really struggling to come up with an actual new feud for Damian Priest, which is why they just threw him against John Morrison again after WrestleMania Backlash when The Miz got eaten. There is more on that on my YouTube channel for details there. Riddle and Orton, the chemistry they have is a genuine positive on Raw, which is difficult to support at times because, you know, it's Matt Riddle. But Randy Orton is so committed to the ridiculousness of this that honestly, it's a wonder the Fiend storyline didn't really work out. Randy Orton took on Xavier Woods in probably the best match of the night. They went back and forth quite a bit, but Xavier Woods was always slightly on the defensive, which is about right when you're taking on Randy Orton. It doesn't matter how popular you are, it's Randy Orton. Randy Orton would eventually pick up the win with a Bro Derek. So he would trade finishes with Matt Riddle. Also slightly confused by the fact that Matt Riddle decided to pick up his scooter, climb over the ropes so that he didn't have to drop it, and then immediately drop it in the corner where he could have just put it under the ropes. There are some baffling things that happen in this world. Shayna Baszler took on Reginald in probably the most offensive Reginald has ever been. So far he's only wrestled 3 matches on the main roster and they've all been intergender, but at least in this one he managed to get a few hits in. A very smooth looking body slam, for example, and not just constantly flipping away. Reginald did get the win because it's Shayna Baszler and she doesn't win matches anymore, but at least it was because of fire. Yeah, fire. Remember when Shayna Baszler was good? Mace and T-Bar, or the new Ascension as they very much come across, beat up the Lucha House Party in about 3 minutes. This is standard fare. They're trying to put them over without doing too much, establish their offense, much like they do when a new tag team like the Viking Raiders, like the Bludgeon Brothers way back when, came in. They give them a while of squash matches. They just can't really bring people in from local talent at the moment because of COVID rules. So Lucha House Party took the fall on this one. Sheamus, who could have declared victory over Adnan Virk this week but decided not to, lined up a very brave match back-to-back with another match. So he started against Ricochet and his second match was against Humberto Carrillo. Now, this was quite brave, bit stupid, not very heelish. However, Sheamus hasn't really gone full heel from where I'm sitting. He's got this monster vibe that he had ever since his feud with Drew McIntyre, that actually I think will make him more over than he's been in a long time when crowds do return. Sheamus this week did lose to Ricochet because of a distraction from Humberto Carrillo. Carrillo ran down the ring looking to dive in and then stopped dead, and even I was convinced by that one. That's one of the few times when a surprise roll-up and a distraction finish I'll actually let you get away with because it was at least a little bit creative. In the second match of the two, Humberto Carrillo also picked up the win over Sheamus, meaning he went 2-2, but at least this time you can take advantage of the fact that he had his face bust open. Very professional from Sheamus to keep going when his face was literally pouring blood. Reminds me a little bit of the Big Boss Man way back when, the match with Road Dogg, when Road Dogg bust his face open with a real jug of water instead of the fake one next to it, and Big Boss Man still finished the match. Joey Mercury, eat your heart out. Eva Marie is still coming back. If she could hurry the hell up, that'd be great. In our second women's match of the night, Mandy Rose and Dana Brooke have earned an opportunity against the tag team champions Natalya and Tamina by defeating Naomi and Lana. This was okay. The match was moderately high tempo, but I do feel they need to work on some of their chemistry for the finishes. It looked like something of a blockbuster with some elevation from Mandy Rose, but it did not pay off. They were slightly out of time and need to work on that. That said, this could be the beginning of something, and at least it's something new in the women's tag division, which we haven't seen in, I want to say, about 6 months. Cedric Alexander beat Shelton Benjamin in 20 seconds. Are they going to stay on TV now? I mean, it's a 2-for-1. That's a victory for Cedric, surely. Feud's over. Or are they going to wrestle for the next 6 months themselves? Who can tell? Finally, through that very difficult second hour, we get to AJ Styles and Omos versus Elias and Jackson Ryker, which is still not the most entertaining, but it's got AJ Styles, so surely it's going to be good. It was a Raw Tag Team Championship match in which the Raw Tag Team Champions forgot to bring out their belts, so that was a bit of a sign of things to come. But also, the actual story here was about Elias turning on Jackson Ryker. Who's the face, who's the heel? Because I'm going to boo Jackson Ryker. Just WWE, so you know, I'm just going to boo Jackson Ryker. The third hour this week did have some highlights. Alexa Bliss backstage interviews Reginald, and in many ways interviews in the exact same way that I've seen so many wannabe wrestling journalists try it, bless them. In addition to that, Reginald was beaten up by Shayna Baszler in a very classic, very enjoyable way. I remember a time in a lumberjack match when it was Dean Ambrose and The Miz, and Baron Corbin just pulls Ambrose out of the ring and beats the hell out of him, and this reminded me of that. In the middle of everything, Shayna Baszler just pulls Reginald back off his swing, beats the crap out of him, kicks him to the curb, and then makes a real mistake, saying to Alexa Bliss's doll Lily, "You're just a doll." There was a zoom in, so 100% that exact shot is going to be used in a lot of hype packages over the next few months. There was a Viking Raiders sighting, and in fact a Mansoor sighting, which is rare indeed. But more importantly than that, Mansoor might be facing off against Mustafa Ali. If that's the only good thing out of Raw, then it makes it a Raw worth watching, I'll tell you that. Finally, in our main event, we had a 20-minute match between Drew McIntyre and Kofi Kingston. I don't think anyone really expected Kofi Kingston to pick up the win here. However, it was still a clean win for Drew McIntyre, well deserved in the end. A Claymore leapt into while Kofi Kingston was coming off the top rope, so a clever finish too, and really compelling TV. It's just a shame it took this long for Raw to really catch up to it. It really goes to show how few actual top-level stars that the WWE has right now on Raw, whereas on SmackDown, you've got basically compelling television the whole way through. Raw, they really struggled this week. This means that Charlotte Flair will face Rhea Ripley at Hell in a Cell, probably in a cell, and of course now Drew McIntyre will face Bobby Lashley at Hell in a Cell, in a Hell in a Cell. So we're going to be waiting for final confirmation of those two matches. Expect contract signings in the next couple of weeks. A number of people were conspicuous in their absence. Even though they didn't get into the ring, the Viking Raiders, Mansoor Ali and Damian Priest all at least managed to appear backstage briefly. Meanwhile, no Jeff Hardy once again, no Jinder Mahal once again. There are a number of people missing in action at the moment, most notably this week, Asuka, who was completely nowhere to be seen. There is a definite effort in Raw at the moment, particularly with Vince McMahon less involved in WWE programming, to elevate people lower down the card and make some new stars. Unfortunately, right now, they haven't been able to make it particularly compelling, and this particular Raw was just a bit boring. I was able to enjoy some of it largely because I do Twitch watch parties and people kept me entertained, but if I wasn't hosting a watch party for Twitch, I probably would have stopped after about an hour. Let us know what you thought of Raw down in the comments, any concerns that you might have about the people who are currently missing. I've been Tom Colahue, and thank you very much for watching.